Thank you, everybody, for joining the Bassfug podcast. Today, we have a very, very special guest, GORESHIT, a.k.a. Leon Makepeace. How are you today?
I'm good. Yeah, not doing too bad.
Thank you for joining us during this tough time of global pandemic.
It's as good a time as any to be with phone interviews, you know?
Yeah. So you're known for a lot of things, I think particularly breakcore. I was wondering if you could talk about, well, first of all, how are you handling the quarantine? Are you making more music or less, or?
I usually make a lot anyway. I spend like 8 hours a day trying to make just kind of my routine, you know. So I'm a bit of a hermit anyway, so it's not really making much difference, you know.
Yeah. Do you find do you miss sort of the playing live, or is that something you were slowing down on anyways?
You know what, luckily, the last gig I did, which was just before COVID was announced, I decided I was taking a break to work on music. So
cool.
So it kind of didn't affect me too bad in that way.
So why were you? Are you working on a new album, or?
I mean, I'm always working on something, but I felt like I was playing the same tunes over and over again. I've been playing live more than I was used to, and I was just I wanted something new to play. So I wanted to spend some time just working on ideas, you know.
And where are you located now? You're
Northern England.
Northern England. Is there a big breakcore scene there?
It's not bad. I only moved here like a year and a half ago. I did live in Britain. I suppose for its whole breakcore. But yeah, it's good up here. It's like a lot of the shows I've been playing locally are like 6 hours of breakcore and then 6 hours of grindcore, things like that, which suits me great. Like I'd much rather have a lot more variety. You know what I mean?
What are you using to play live? Because I noticed lately you've been using Octamed to produce your tracks. Do you bring? Is it on an Atari or is it an Amiga that you're running that on?
Oh, that's an Amiga. I have a few Amigas. I'm using an Amiga 12,000. But to be honest, none of the sound is really generated on the Amiga. Or it's all just triggering samplers and drum machines and synthesizers, that kind of thing. But I haven't done that live yet. But me and a friend, Hexadeci, he also produces on Amiga. We're talking about doing like a short tour. Obviously, it'd have to be UK only because the amount of shit required to actually play this stuff live.
Yeah.
So yeah. But at the minute, no, I'm just using bitwig. I've been using bitwig for 3 or 4 years. Before that, I used Ableton.
Isn't bitwig made by the same guys that made Ableton?
Yeah. Apparently, it was like disgruntled employees at Ableton who left and wanted to make their own thing. And to be honest, I prefer it to Ableton. I only got it out of necessity at first because I wanted to ditch Windows and I don't want to pay the entry price for Mac. So I use Linux now.
Okay,
and bitwig is the only proper door for Linux.
Which distro?
I own. I did used to use Elementary OS, and before that I've been using it on and off for like 15 years. But I built my own based on, I use Manjaro, but like just basically the kernel as a base. And then I built my own desktop on top of that.
Nice. Yeah, I was in the same boat. I'm a native Windows or a Linux user, and fuck that, man. You can't get anything on there. I'm so happy that Renoise is supported on Linux, or else I wouldn't be able to use the computer. You know?
Oh, definitely.
Yeah. I was thinking about buying bitwig, but I was kind of on the fence about it. So it's nice to know that you're using that. What's going on with Octamed? Why did you pull out Octamed?
Well, I mean, I've always been interested. Well, when I was a kid, I had an Atari ST, and I had some kind of tracker for that. But obviously, the Atari ST doesn't have a proper sound chip, so it was just for like bleeps and boops. But that was when I was about 6 or 7, and I mean, I've kind of constantly collected video games since I was a kid, and that's involved, Amigas, Commodores, stuff like that. And I don't know, just interesting. It was my first tracker, since being an adult. I'm working on music. I don't know. I liked how, I mean, I was using 4 sound channels. That was it. And it was really limiting me. And I think I needed that. You know, I've been using Ableton and Bitwig for 15 years, and it's the hell you want, and it's easy. And I don't know. I found like restrictions was really helping me. I was a bit stuck, and yeah, it was a new way of doing things, and it helped me just get out of that kind of funk, you know?
Yeah, especially when you're producing breakcore, it's sort of this crazy genre with all the sound design, and if you don't put a cap on yourself, you never end up finishing a track because there's just so many layers, you know?
For sure, exactly. You know, it's like a lot of my projects in Ableton and Bitwig have got like, I don't know, 50 to 100 audio channels, which is unnecessary. I'm not good at optimization, but it was just too free, and yeah, I needed just a change. That's also why I'm using Renoise now. I've been producing in Renoise for the past 6 months. So yeah.
Yeah, Renoise is great. I was a big Fast Tracker 2 guy, and you know, it's a DOS only program, and it doesn't work so hot in DOSBox. Like, it's okay, but it's not like it's not like on a Pentium 133. But and I tried Scale Tracker and a couple of other ones, and but Renoise was sort of the happy medium, I think, for the trackers.
For sure, it's great.
Yeah. So can we go through your history? How did you get into where you are now, into breakcore? Because I remember you from a long time ago. I remember you from almost 2 decades ago. Sorry not to put an age on anything or whatever, but so I'm curious, how did you start? Were you always like musical when you were a child, or how did you get to be the breakcore guy?
Yeah, I was always into music. It's always been my main focus. Like when I was in school, I was more focused on my punk bands than I was on school. I left school and I got a job, and luckily I had like I could kind of work whenever I wanted. I was a mortician, and I worked for 3 months. It was a good job. It was real nice, you know. I'd work for 3 months, and then I'd take 3 months off. I was in a post-rock, math rock band. You know, that was more important to me than work. So I'd kind of just make sure I had enough money, and then I'd take 3 months off and go on tour. And during that time, I started my Asumai, which is still going. So that's older than GORESHIT. And then basically me and my brother, when I was like 17, 18, something like that, we made a fake record label on MySpace called Cow Records. And we had like 100 artists that were all just us. And GORESHIT was just one of those. And for some reason, people heard it, and now it's still a thing. So
that's ingenious. Yeah. I was thinking, I have 13 hours worth of like dark ambient music that I made. And I was like, I can't put this all out at the same time as like one guy. So I was trying to figure out what to do. And I was like, yeah, maybe I should just make like a label where it's all me, but I don't tell anybody. And then just release all those like as different things. So
yeah, I mean, it was a lot of fun, you know.
Did it work out for you? How did that, was there any challenges into doing that?
It was literally just us fucking around. There was no intent on anything. I mean, I never intended for anyone to hear GORESHIT or the others, you know. So it's like, I don't know, just a happy accident, I suppose. It was just something we did because we were idiots. I mean, we used to just make stupid, like, fucking videos about nothing, like extreme motorsports videos with us not actually doing anything extreme on broken bikes and shit, you know, like, yeah, just wasting our time, you know.
Nice. So your brand came out of an experiment of having lots of other bands. Can you give us some names of the other bands that were on this fake label for the hardcore fans?
Yeah. Okay. Well, there's one that weirdly people still listen to called The Crafts, which was me and my brother. It was me on drums and him on guitar. And we pretended we were from the 50s, and that this was like archives of old kind of noise rock shit that was way ahead of its time, recorded in the 50s, that we were kind of releasing over time, pretending it was like this archived material. Some people believed it. Other people didn't believe it, but still listened to it. You know, we had like 54 albums that we recorded in 1 year, just in our bedroom.
That's crazy.
Our neighbors hated us.
Yeah, that happens. Yeah. But speaking of, man, so you were broken into and all your shit got stolen? That sucks.
Yeah, that was my studio in the city. Luckily, not my house. So it was me and a few of my friends that have it, and so I'm actually in 2 bands at the moment, and we all use that space. Yeah, we had about £5,000 worth of stuff stolen. That's a conservative estimate. Most of our stuff is incredibly rare, hard to put a value on it, but expensive. You know, it's a shame. It's a shame.
Is your GoFundMe still up?
It is. Yeah, it is.
You want to plug that for our listeners?
I mean, sure. Yeah. I mean, so we started a GoFundMe. None of us have, big income, and it's over and we can get back to, playing in our bands and shit. We're not going to have anything to play with, basically. Pretty much everything was taken. So the address to it. But if you go on the GORESHIT Facebook page, there are lots of links to a GoFundMe page if you wish to support us. Obviously, do not feel the need. This isn't your problem, and everyone else is struggling just as much as, if not, more than we are. So, yeah, it's people have been very generous so far, and I want to thank them for that. Massively generous. It's insane the amount of support we've had. Yeah,
with this whole quarantine thing, I guess the MVP that people kind of don't realize is the fucking internet. I mean, you imagine this quarantine without the internet, it'd be crazy. Right?
Yeah, holy shit. I mean, people are addicted to the internet outside of a quarantine. Imagine people going fucking cold turkey on Instagram. Yeah. Fucking hell. People can't live without that shit.
Yeah. Let's talk about MySpace for a bit. I find MySpace is very near and dear for me. MySpace and SoulSeek. I spent a lot of time there in the early 2000s, as a lot of people have. Can you explain what the music experience was for you on MySpace and how it sort of affected you and how it, I presume, launched you further in your career?
Sure. Well, I mean, my first kind of experience with MySpace music was my band. Most of my band lived in Oxford. I lived in Bristol. So most of our gigs were around Oxford, London. We played a lot of places in the UK. We've done pretty good. We played with a lot of, math rock bands that we were obsessed with. And we were like 16 to 18 years old between us. And yeah, so I remember MySpace. It wasn't really like you could just spread it out there. It was like you had your page and it was all like private. It had to be searched for. And I think most of our kind of traffic and stuff came from people actually coming to the shows first and then going to the MySpace off the back of that, which is kind of the opposite to now, isn't it? Like people come to the shows because they've seen a link on Facebook. I feel like it was the complete opposite. It was almost like a website, like your page was like a band website as opposed to something within a website, if that makes sense.
No, it makes sense. Yeah.
I mean, it was like with the GORESHIT stuff, I don't even know how people found that stuff. I have no fucking idea. Like I said, it was one of 20, 30 pages on this Cow Records website thing. And I don't know how people found it. I have no idea.
Well, I think in the early 2000s, sort of breakcore was kind of becoming. It was invented, I guess, if you want to say the word invented. It started earlier, but I think the MySpace era was sort of when breakcore was hot, and I think just everybody was looking for it, So they were checking out everybody's top 8 friends or whatever the fuck it was, and trying to find like the next Venetian snares, right? So. I think
one thing I would say.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, go
carry
ahead.
on.
No, go.
Oh, well, one thing I would say on that is I think netlabels played a much bigger
for sure
role than they do now. Like I remember being released on, there was this dude called Number 305 from Japan. He was fucking awesome. He used to do these gigs where he'd just have loads of plushies and a Guitar Hero controller, and he'd play this like MIDI punk shit. It was fucking amazing. But he had a label called UGU, and it was really small. But he put out one of my releases, and people in Japan heard me because of that. And then there's Dancecore, which is my friend Tom from Scotland. And, you know, his label, I mean, shit, like, I think Tom and the people on Dancecore in the kind of mid 2000s, or early 2000s rather, I feel like that's the beginning of the whole. I don't think really there were many people doing it before, you know? So those kind of things really helped spread me to an audience that I wasn't looking for, which is good, obviously.
Yeah, and I think with archive.org, I don't know if you remember that site, that was really where netlabelism really got its backbone, you know. But you're right, the net labels really were a thing before Bandcamp, and people forget that, you know. I remember when Radiohead released their With Rainbows EP, and they're like, "Oh, we're giving it away for free. We're so underground." I was like, dude, like there's so many fucking people putting their music out on net labels right now. Like, fuck off. But yeah, net labels were the shit. You know, there's so many of them, and there's a lot of guys that were started on net labels that, you know, like if you look at Wisp was on. God, I forget the name of that net label, but then he went on Reflex, Aphex Twin's label later on. And, you know, there was some other ones, right? I think Orange Dust, he was on a net label I was on, and then he ended up being on Ben Jordan's label, you know?
Nice.
So, yeah, it was a good time for music. How do you think it's changed now with, like, sort of the Bandcamp paradigm and, like, sort of SoundCloud being the new sort of MySpace? Do you think it's better or worse for artists?
I think as far as income goes, you know, that's an issue for some people, or rather a focus for some people. It's better, definitely. I mean, you sell one physical CD, and to be honest, you're making like hundreds of hours worth of streaming, you know. So I think it was better when people were buying CDs. You know, like people would contact me through MySpace and ask for CDs. Not with GORESHIT, I didn't have any at the time, but I have my project Hannes in my, and people would contact me there and buy a CD. And, you know, from SoundCloud now, I probably make like $30 a month, and that's for over 100,000 plays. You know, it's like, yeah, exactly. If I sold 2-3 CDs, that makes up for those however many hours of listens, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's streaming, I feel like, is not a great way to make an income unless you're a big artist, which, let's face it, no one in the breakcore scene is. You know, that's not its nature. So I don't know. I think it's better and worse. I think it's better because, you know, Bandcamp is a great place to store shit, and you know, people can go on mine and say, oh, I'll download this, I'll download that, you know. Whereas on MySpace, you have to chuck up all the links, which would go to archive and things like that. So as a platform for listening to music, I think it's great. I don't actually use any streaming services, so I don't really use SoundCloud or anything for listening to music. I'm, you know, one of those dinosaurs that uses SoulSeek and fills up hard drives with stuff. You know, yeah. Obviously, besides the stuff I buy, but I'm not going to pretend I don't pirate.
It's funny because I was talking to my friend. He's like a EDM DJ, and he's getting pretty big now. And he was showing me his statistics of SoundCloud. I didn't even know you can make money on SoundCloud. He has like a bajillion plays, and he gets like no money from it. It's insane.
Yeah, and it's poor.
It's the same thing with Spotify too. You know, you could have 1 million streams and you'll get like $100 or something.
Yeah, I mean, I've actually only just gone on to Spotify and iTunes and stuff like that. It's not something I was ever going to do. I mean, I don't have an account for any of those things. I've never used them. But friends of mine who run a label in Canada, Kitty on Fire Records, they're real good to me. They basically took over putting everything on that kind of stuff, you know, putting everything on streaming services, because I don't have the energy, I don't have the knowledge. The amount of legal shit they've had to do to get my stuff up there, like because of sampling and stuff like that, is crazy.
Really?
Oh yeah. Like I thought they'd just upload stuff and be done with it, but no, they're constantly, doing work to keep my music up there. They haven't had any problems as such. I think the one track that we didn't manage to put up was a cover of a Frank Zappa song.
Oh, nice.
But it had no sampling whatsoever. It was me doing synthesizers, guitars, drum machines, vocals. Like there was no Flower Punk.
Okay.
There's no actual Frank Zappa material in it other than the notes. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's the only one that we haven't managed to get on the internet. The one that has no sampling is the one that they won't put up there. So
Dweezil's
I know,
gatekeeping.
Right? I mean,
yeah.
Frank doesn't really need the money, does he?
No. In fact, I think Frank Zappa would be cool with that. But anyways, yeah, Jazz from Hell, good album.
Definitely.
Yeah. So let's talk about your gear that you have now. Like you're using octamed. I see you post diskettes on Instagram. I love that. I love the, I don't want to say old aesthetic, but I don't know. There's just something tactile about using like a Ackie S1200, you know what I mean? With like diskettes that you just can't get on software. I don't want to be that guy, but there's just something about it that's just, I can't explain it.
I have to agree with you. I mean, it's one thing that's helped me get back into making music. I was really stuck on modern software. And, using the Archive, I've got a couple of S2000s. And sampling on those is like, first of all, you have to be conscious of memory and fitting things onto floppy disks and stuff like that.
Do you have the expansion on them or?
Yeah, I have one that has the 8-channel expansion,
nice. And
the other two are just stereo, but they've all got 32 meg of RAM.
Cool.
So RAM's not really an issue. I know 32 megabytes, but compared to the floppy disks, I think they save at 880k as well. I don't think they actually use the full 1.5 meg.
Yeah, because you have to format it to some Ackie format.
Exactly.
Or some shit like that. Yeah.
And it partitions it to fit effects in one bit and samples in another. So it kind of just takes up extra space it doesn't need by storing these minuscule effects files in bigger partitions than they need. So, yeah. But the actual process of sampling on it is like, I started a track yesterday and I must have sampled 40 different bits of breaks. So I just record all these different, I wanted to try the whole, in Renoise, I do these kind of randomized breaks where I take like snares and bass drums and hi-hats from, 10, 15 different breaks and then make them into one break and then cycle through the slices to get that kind of super glitched kind of thing going on. So I thought I'd try that on the Archive. And I must have spent 3 hours just recording them. And then another few hours turning them into readable programs. You can't just sample it and play it. You have to sample it, create a program to play it,
And assign it to the goddamn note. Yeah, that's annoying.
Exactly. I mean, I would, if I had started this way, of course I would think it's annoying.
Yeah.
But I think because it's such a different way of doing things, also, I think one thing that's helping me with this process is like, I'm not getting as frustrated as quickly because everything's taking so long.
Yeah.
I'm spending like 15 minutes on one sample sometimes.
Yeah.
I haven't rushed through and got stuck.
Yeah.
I'm still preparing. And by the time I've done that, I'm still in the mood to actually put that sample into a format where it can be used, as opposed to just dragging the sample in, dragging another sample in. Now I've got like 100 samples and I've programmed some MIDI synths and stuff. And I'm like, I don't know what to do now. But this has taken me so long.
Yeah. And it's like when it forces you to sort of, I don't know, it's like baking an apple pie or something. Yeah, sure, you could go buy like one at the store, but if you do it yourself and you do everything from scratch, there's like a weird like emotional satisfaction to it, and it forces you to kind of really like get used to your sample that you're working on. It's like you said in Renoise, you could just drop in some fucking pack, you download it on MediaFire or whatever, and you might not necessarily have like the same sort of song that you would have if you use like the Ackie 2000.
Exactly. I mean, one thing that I think's helped with that regard, you were saying about downloading a sample pack, like I think that's something that's done too much. I don't think people very often sample in the true sense of the word. Does that make sense? Like, no one's actually recording samples. And that's something that I've forced myself to do with this. I haven't opened up my computer and gone through my breaks file and recorded into the archive from that. I'm recording from records, tapes, things like that, and it forces you to hunt things down. And instead of just finding that super nice, clean amen break that someone's already prepackaged for you, you're finding your own and then saying, well, that's cool, but like, I don't know, I want it to have a beefier kick and more distortion. And then you start layering it and recording from one sampler to another. And I don't know, I'm really finding that entertaining, just like fucking around with 1 second's worth of sample for a whole day. I love it.
And I think a lot of people that, maybe not for you, but I know some people I've talked to, and they sort of struggle with like originality, you know what I mean? And they're always sort of, trying to find out how they could find their own voice. And what I try to tell these people is, it's like, well, just ditch the fucking sample packs, get a folder on your computer, just call it 2020, and just carry around a microphone, use your phone to record cars passing by or whatever, and make, drum beats out of that or something. Right.
I could not agree more. That's, very much so.
Yeah. You're talking about tapes. So how's your process going for collecting tapes? Do you go hunting for tapes, or do you just have some laying around, or how does that work?
No, I haven't bought a tape in years. I used to collect them. I used to use them a lot in my ambient noise shows. Like, I had this weird tape machine where you could alter the speed, and I'd just play. I used to go and buy a lot of like Arab dance tapes. Okay. For some reason, they were everywhere in charity shops around here. I've got a bunch of like, these like kind of Islamic dance tapes, and they had like really cool 303 and 303 lines and 909 beats and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So I used to sample from those a lot. I've still got those lying around, but yeah, I haven't bought a tape in years. So I'm pretty much just going through old stuff and just seeing what there is. Most of the time if I record a sample, it's like 0.1 seconds, and it's just to have some kind of weird noise, and then I'll stretch it out and, use granulation to make it into something else, that kind of thing,
Yeah. Well, you were saying that you used to collect video games. I was a video game collector for a long time. I guess I still kind of do a little bit, but I find tapes are the only thing that haven't really been ruined by the reseller market. Like you used to be able to buy Shinobi 3 on Mega Drive for $9, but now if you go on eBay, it's like probably $50 or some shit like that.
Yes.
But like if you get a cassette of like you said, some obscure dance music the tape was probably made by the guy with his own tape duplication system, right? You can find these for like 25 cents, and it's really exciting to kind of go find these old tapes. I love it. That's what I go to thrift stores for now, so that's why I was curious about it. Let's talk about video games for a bit. Let's talk about video game music. I noticed that you were kind of taking PS1 aesthetic for some of your album covers. I think it's very cool. Oh, yeah. How much of, and I was listening to one of your tracks, I think you were sampling Parasite Eve.
Yes.
How influential is video game music to you? Because I know for me, it's probably up there. It's right up there with Metallica. You know what I mean? Like,
I mean, as far as electronic stuff goes, it's why I, most of my early ideas, like the first GORESHIT EP, I'd never heard breakcore. I hadn't heard what breakcore was. I heard breakcore when I accidentally saw Venetian Snares live, like a few months after I made the first album.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean, we were just unloading gear there, I think. Oh, wow. And Venetian Snares was playing, and I'd never heard it before.
Cool.
It was really good. So video game music was much more influential to me. Like, I think the very first track on the first EP, I recorded a bunch of Super Mario sound effects to use as the synthesizer. Nice. It wasn't supposed to be breakcore. It's just like I was a kid and I wanted to make music, but no one in my village where I lived was interested in anything like what I was doing. So I just thought, okay, well, I'll download some drums. So I searched for drums, and then it gives me the aim and break. So I started using that. And, in retrospect, I guess the first GORESHIT EP is breakcore. But yeah, I'd never heard of it. So, but as far as video game music goes, like I love the sound chips. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
the Mega Drive sound chip, I love. I have a synthesizer, which this guy makes, and he sells it really cheap. It's a really nice synthesizer. It's got like 4 little LCD screens and 2 real nice control knobs and a little kind of touch sensitive piano on it.
What's it called?
What's it called? I think it's just called the Mega Drive synth. DAFM synth. I've got it here. I'm just reading the site. Yeah, the DAFM synth. It's really nice. It's just got the original YM3438 chip in it.
Is this the guy from France?
But yeah,
Okay.
or Spain, one of the two.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, it's a really nice little thing. Yeah.
Sorry, I cut you off. Tell me about this synth because I wanted to buy one.
Oh, yeah, no problem. Oh, yeah, it's fucking great. Complaints about it. The only complaint is that it has no MIDI filtering. So, like, if you want to use it live as part of your rig, you can't disable MIDI channels on it.
Okay.
However, that's a good thing in one way, in that you can use just this synth as basically a way to make Mega Drive music. Like, it has 6 or 7 MIDI channels that you can assign different patches to, and you could program it to, well, yeah, basically like making music on a Mega Drive, but you don't need a Mega Drive, you know?
Nice. Yeah, because I don't know if you saw, I think it's Electron, they released the model Cycles recently. And
Yes.
it's FM Groove Box. And I wanted one, but I couldn't justify the cost. And I was like, maybe I should just make some FM samples. So I loaded up some, what's the VST? Fuck it, I'm going a blank. Not FM8, but the other one, Dext. DEXED.
Dext is great, yeah.
So I kind of was making some drums in that, and I threw it into a sampler, and I was like, it's good enough, you know, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I can recommend it if you're looking for a Mega Drive based synth, though. It's amazing. And also, if you, for example, pull up a Mega Drive sound file on a PC or whatever, you could just copy the algorithms onto the synthesizer and get that exact sound, if that makes sense. So if you wanted a specific Streets of Rage synthesizer, you could just copy the data straight to the synthesizer and have that, you know?
Yeah. Streets of Rage is another one of these games with the soundtrack is just mesmerizing. You know what I mean?
Yeah. That's a huge influence on my 90s.
You could play that live. Like I played that live, like just to dick around, and like people are dancing to it. It's fucked.
They recently did a tour. The original composers did a live tour of it. It looks great. There's
oh wow,
YouTube, like the entire set, old Akai MPD drum machines to play it. You know,
wow,
it's really cool.
So you were inspired by the Genesis sound chip. Did you sort of? For me, I guess it was the PlayStation 1 that I think had some of the most killer soundtracks, like Tekken 3, like Ridge Racer. Ridge Racer had like speedcore on it, like terrorcore. It's fucked up.
Yeah. So good. So good.
Yeah.
I didn't have a PlayStation growing up. We had the Sega Saturn.
Oh, nice. Well, Virtual Fighter 2 soundtrack is great.
That was good. That was really good. And also the Wipeout soundtrack, obviously, because it's just
cold storage.
Actual good electronic music from the time. Yeah. Also the Destruction Derby soundtrack. The original Destruction Derby game. The soundtrack to that is fucking great. I don't think it's like artists or whatever, in the same way that, Ridge Racer wasn't. It was just one guy doing a bunch of tracks. But it's a really good soundtrack. It's like kind of drum and bass, breakbeat kind of stuff. Really nice soundtrack.
Do you think that video game soundtracks now are kind of boring? Like when you buy like a modern game, it's like sort of like it's like it's that orchestra pack, and it's just like overdone, like trying to sound like a movie or something. But it's weird because I was going
to say Michael Bay. You know, it's all very Michael Bay.
Yeah.
I'm not particularly interested. My favorite video game composer is Rob Hubbard. You know Rob Hubbard?
Rings a bell. What did he do again?
He did Commando for the Commodore 64. He did all of the Road Rash games for the Mega Drive. He did so many soundtracks. Jungle Strike.
Oh, nice.
He used all these like really, really nice synth sounds on the Mega Drive ones. Like really kind of harsh, almost Hoover sounds, but using the Mega Drive chip.
Yeah.
So yeah, Rob Hubbard, I love. His Commodore 64 stuff's amazing. That's like influence on the way I do things in Octamed, actually, because he, the Commodore 64 chip had 3 sound channels. That's it. So to get the illusion of a chord, he'd do these really fast arpeggios and the individual notes, so it sounded like a chord. And that really intrigued me. So yeah, I've been doing the same kind of thing on the Octamed.
Yeah, it's like Tim Follin and who's the other guy? David Wise, right?
Oh, David Wise. Yeah.
Yeah, the old Commodore 64 guys. Going back to trackers again, yeah. Let's talk about playing live and playing shows. What is it that you said you use bitwig, but can you sort of expand on that? And I know you've had more touring than the average breakcore producer. Can you talk about what it's like getting shows and how to get shows and how to prepare for playing live?
Sure. Well, my main setup live is I have bitwig. And at the minute, I'm using an old Archive Ableton controller, the massive one that's like the size of a suitcase. Before that, I was using an Electrics tweaker, which was made by Livid Instruments like a decade ago. But it's playing up on me, and finding a replacement is impossible. So yeah, I'm using this Ableton controller, and basically how I have it is I lost most of the original project files for 99% of my music. So unfortunately, I can't like dissect the tracks and kind of play individual bits. So I tend to have a track playing or 2 tracks playing. And I like to cut the different frequencies out so I can replace the bass drums or replace the hi-hats, like cut out the highs and the lows. Yeah, it's like the only way I found around not having stems. And it works okay, but my main is playing drums. I basically cut breaks or make drum beats or whatever. I cut them into their most individual components. So like, each individual hi-hat, each individual snare, each individual bass drum. And then I play them unquantized live. Just like, and I have my drum pads set up like how I'd play real drums. So it feels natural to play like a drum kit, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So yeah, I tend to do that. That's what I spend most of my time doing, just playing breaks. Because then it's different every time. Especially if you make the break really kind of obvious, not just a background break. If you make it into something where it kind of replaces the track's original drum beats, you can really change things up. I also don't tempo lock things, so I can play my tracks just however the fuck I want. Like, I very rarely play them at the original tempo or pitch. Just fit whatever I want to do at the time. I have songs that are 120 BPM, but I'll play them at 200 just to have something completely different, I also do a lot of live rearranging of the tracks, like kind of beat 8 and moving it to beat 2, beat 4, and just kind of like to kind of make things more interesting. I kind of phase between having like completely wet or a completely dry signal on that. So I might have it halfway between. So I'm doing all this glitching and rearranging, but the original track is still present underneath. And then you get like weird clashing notes and weird drum beats that you didn't expect, stuff like that.
Yeah.
I don't feel like I'm earning, like I've been hired or asked to play a show. I don't feel like I'm working if I'm not constantly pressing things. And it kind of works to my detriment sometimes, because sometimes I should just let something ride, just let people hear something. But I'm like, I need to press buttons. I need to do something, Yeah. Sometimes I can ruin a track by doing that.
It's weird. Yeah. When you're playing live, you sort of feel like if you just hit play, it kind of, some people could do it, but man, like I can't. And it sounds like you have that feeling because you were playing in more traditional bands before, and as like 1 second of silence on stage feels like an hour. So you're always trying to fill air and always trying to entertain people that are at any moment going to walk out for a cigarette,
Yeah, for sure. And I don't want to be bored myself either. Like it's, I don't want to stand up there. I mean, I don't listen to my own music. unless I'm playing live, ever. I never listen to my own music. So, you know, I couldn't sit there and press play and stand there listening to my tune. You know, I don't want to. If I'm changing it up and doing something with it, then it feels justified. It feels like, I mean, I think people should listen to their own music, but I've got weird double standards. To me, I feel like I'm being egotistical by listening to my own stuff, which is bullshit. Everyone should listen to their own stuff because they're trying to make what they would want to listen to.
Exactly.
But I just can't do it. I can't listen to my own tunes. So if I'm playing live, I have to do something with it, you know.
Yeah.
I have to be doing something.
Plus, you listen to it about 100 times when you're producing the damn song in the first place.
Oh, shit,
know? Yeah. How do you like play shows? Is it more like people approach you or you approach them or you plan tours?
Yeah. Sorry, yeah, you asked me that. I've never asked for a show because I didn't want to play. I never wanted to play. I didn't want people to hear it in the first place. And then when they started listening to it, I didn't want to start playing. But a friend of mine, Tom from Dancecore, he basically booked me 2 shows in Scotland and 2 shows in Belgium, and said, look, you're doing these and I'm coming with you. And I was like, fine, it's Tom. I don't want to let him down. And I'm so glad he did, because now it's like a big part of my life. You know, I've been everywhere apart from Asia, you know, and that's, you know, I never would have done that before. I'd never left the country before that. So yeah, I've been lucky in the sense that I guess, built up a reputation before I wanted to do anything. Like, I didn't want people to hear it. I didn't want to play shows, blah, blah, blah. I didn't want to make money. I didn't want to do any of those things. And they just happened over time. And because I wasn't hunting them down, I think, you know, I'm very happy with where I am. You know, like I'm not like touring to the point where I live on the road, which is good because I like my kind of time at home by myself or with my wife. And, you know, I'm not on some label trying to constantly make money by releasing things when I don't feel like making anything. Yeah. I mean, you know, a lot of people contact me asking how to make money or how to get shows. And I can't really advise people because there's never an aim. Yeah. And I can imagine aiming for that being incredibly frustrating, especially if you're trying to still keep an element of integrity and carry on making breakcore or whatever. Because you can't make big money with breakcore. Yeah. Even the biggest artists don't make big money. You know, you know, no one does. It's not possible. Yeah. It's like trying to make shitloads of money working at McDonald's. It's not going to happen.
Yeah, exactly. I think
you might do okay. Yeah, but, you know.
Well, I think that's exactly it. It's like when I see people that are trying to make money or trying to get a lot of shows, what ends up happening is they just make music for that whatever's hot that weekend, and they're constantly changing their style to sort of acquiesce to what will get them a show. And 9 times out of 10, when you get that show, it's not necessarily like people don't really respect you the same way as if someone has a breakcore bill and GORESHIT's playing, people are going to be like, oh, fuck, GORESHIT's going to Montreal. Like, I'm never going to be able to see that show again. I got to go to it. You know what I mean? Right? Yeah. So it's there is like a compromise to find both, you know? And I think when you're doing something true and incredible, maybe the money and the shows are few and far between, but the people are going to appreciate it more. I'm sure your fans are way more passionate about your music than, you know, some other guy, right?
Sure. I know what you mean. Like, people have been, you know, there are specific people that have been listening to me since the first release and still do. And that's 15 years now. Yeah. And, you know, they have poor taste, but I appreciate it. It's, I mean, the whole break-in thing that we talked about earlier into my studio, you know, it really showed how fucking, it's a small fan base, but it's like a proper kind of loyal and interested fan base. And that's really nice, you know. Yeah. Like, I play a show where I've never played before, and people are asking me really specific questions about music. And it's like they've got more knowledge about my music than I do. Yeah. And that's really humbling, you know. It's like, because it was never about people hearing it. But now I hear stories from people about how much it helps them on a daily basis or whatever. And it's like, fuck, you know, I mean, it kind of is for other people as well now. Like, If it means something to them, then holy shit, I'm on board. Yeah, then great. I'm glad it means something to them. I'm glad that it's now for other people as well as me. And I'm glad that I haven't had to change what I do to make it for other people. Like that's what a lot of people are trying to do. They're trying to start something for other people, like you said a minute ago. And I'm lucky that I don't have to do that. You know, like I can do whatever the hell I want. And, you know, my styles over albums have been pretty fucking varied. And, you know, in retrospect, I probably should have released them under different names and stuff like that. But really kind of, you know, fuck it. The name is just a way for people to find it. Yeah. It doesn't really matter what the name means. I mean, the name's a bad if I didn't have this name, I might get more gigs, I might get more sales, I might get more interest, you know, because people see the name and they're like, oh, it's probably some stupid fucking grindcore band. Yeah. I think the name has probably put a lot of people off over time.
Yeah. You can't, some places you can't even put up a gig poster with a swear word on it, you know?
Exactly. You know, a lot of people just tend to kind of like block out the I in it and replace it with an exclamation mark or something like that. You know, it's funny.
Yeah. What do you think of the breakcore scene now? Do you think it's different, or do you think it's the same, or do you like the style that's coming out? I know there's a lot of different styles from, you know, back in 1995, I guess, the Destroyer.
Yeah, I mean, I don't listen to a lot of breakcore. I listen to my friends a lot, you know, like the people on Suckbuck Records from Ukraine. If you haven't heard of Suckbuck Records, check them out. I think they're people in breakcore right now. They're doing interesting things. But, you know, I listen to my friends, and people might suggest something to me and I'll listen to it. But it's not something that I hunt down. Do you know what I mean? Like, I don't really listen to... When I listen to electronic music, I'm usually listening to early 90s stuff. Yeah. That's just the kind of vibe that I really like. But mostly I listen to like industrial and grindcore and stuff like that. I'm not really a big electronic listener. But, sorry, we were saying about whether it's better or not. I think the shows that are happening, it's split right down the middle. So I've played some shows in the past few years where I've been bored. You know, I mean, 12 hours of the same beat. You can't tell when one person ends and another starts. That doesn't interest me. But then I've played a lot of shows. Like I said, my local shows after I moved here were like grindcore bands and then breakcore. And all the breakcore was different, and all the grindcore bands were different. And that kind of thing I really love. And a lot of people are really trying to do that right now. Like, especially Canada and Eastern Europe. To me, those are the two places that are doing the most interesting shows.
Where in Canada? Because I'm here in Canada and I don't know where these shows are happening. I got to go.
Well, every show I've played in Vancouver has been great.
Oh, Vancouver.
I think I've played 4 shows in Vancouver now.
The home of Skinny Puppy.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, fucking hell, I love Skinny Puppy. But yeah, the shows there have been like, there'll be like some kind of, I don't know, noise rock band, and then there'll be like a one-person cyber grind thing, and then there'll be some IDM. I mean, because obviously you have Hitori Tori in Vancouver. I think nearly every show I've played there has been with him. Actually, he's a very dear friend of mine. So yeah, I love what they're doing in Vancouver.
Sick. So to wrap things up before we go, what would you give for advice to someone who wanted to start producing breakcore now? Like a kid, he's like 15, you know, doesn't have a lot of money. Like what should he do to start, and how should he start releasing stuff? Should he find a net label? Should he start a net label? Should he collab?
I mean, it really depends what you're aiming for, you know, like, first of all, make it for you, you know, make it because you want to make music.
Yeah.
Like it's so hard to answer, like, what do you do to get attention? Because again, that's not something I ever tried to do. I was lucky, and maybe that's it. Maybe have this as your passion. And if you get lucky with it, then be pleased about that. But obviously reach out to other artists. Say you want to do a split with them. Say you want to play a show with them. Something like that. I don't know. If there's a label that you really like, send them something, you know. They may ignore you. They may, you know, you'd be surprised how many times people actually read things and say, oh yeah, shit, I'll put that out. You know, most luckily within this kind of music, within breakcore, people are in it because they love breakcore, not because they're trying to make a buck. So people will listen to your shit. And if they don't be disheartened by it, you know. As far as having gear and stuff, you know, when I started, I was using a laptop that was shit when I bought it, and it was 5 years old at that point. It was like the cheapest laptop you could buy. And I started using it for music 5 years after it came out. It was a piece of crap. And I used that for another 5 years. I used the worst laptop on sale in 2005 until like 2015 or whatever. I mean, the timeline's wrong there, but you get the point.
Yeah.
I used it live. I used it at home for making music. You know, like pretty much everything GORESHIT related from 5 to 7 years ago was made with a terrible ancient single core computer.
Oof.
And I think I was using Ableton 4 and version 7 or 8 was out, you know, and it doesn't matter. You know, like you don't need expensive shit. You don't need new shit. Like loads of people go out and buy Mac Pros, you know, and you don't need to do that. I mean, if you like Mac, sure, buy a Mac, but like you don't need to. You can use any shitty PC. I mean, shit, like I'm making music, my last couple of albums and the album I'm currently working on, I think the newest piece of hardware is 30 years old.
Oh, wow.
And, you know, you don't need new shit. And you don't need expensive shit. And if you want to start getting like synthesizers and stuff, fucking go careful, because a lot of people buy stuff before they know what they want to use it for.
Yeah.
And I think that's a mistake. People are spending like $500-700 $1,000 on something that they just think, oh, that's cool. And then they arrive and they realize they don't know what they want to do with it. Just buy what you need when you need it. Like I didn't have a controller until I was asked to play live. And then I was like, okay, I should get one. And I spent £20, I think. And I used that for years until I realized, actually, I want to do this.
Yeah.
And then I bought something that was more expensive. Still not expensive. My controllers are cheap. I don't spend more than $100 on a controller, you know, but they do what I need to do. And if I decide that I want to do something that only a product that is $1,000 can provide me with, then maybe I'll buy it. But I wouldn't buy it preempting that I might use it, if that makes sense.
Yeah. That's some sound advice. You know, I actually have one more question that I forgot to ask you.
Sure.
Speaking of gear, what are you using for gear right now? Because I'm in love with the octamed Aki S2000 setup. What else do you got going on there?
Okay. Have a look. So I'm using the Akai, which I'm sending into a Eurorack Pro mixer. So it's just like a mixer that's in the hardware rack. And that has the 8 channels of the Akai going into it. And then I send the stereo of that into the main mixer. It just, you know, gives me more flexibility over the sampler itself. Then I'm using a Novation drum station, which is a early 90s clone of a 909 and an 808 in one rack unit.
Nice.
But it's a full analog clone. So it's not just like sample based. It's basically a 909 and an 808 in a rack unit. And then I've got a Novation bass station, which is really, really nice bass synth.
Classic.
It's so nice. I got the old rack one just because it takes up less space.
Yeah.
Then I'm using a Korg M1, which was actually the first thing I bought.
Korg M1, that's the X-Files theme was recorded on the Korg M1, yeah.
And pretty much every piano ever used in electronic music is the M1.
Yeah.
It's such a nice piano sound. Then I have a Korg MS2000.
Oh, wow.
Which is a virtual analog.
Okay.
Came out 2001, something like that. So that's actually reasonably newer. It looks ancient though. It's all like wood grain and stuff like that. Yeah. But that's really nice. It's got a sequencer. It's got you know, a stupid amount of knobs and there's something like 40 knobs on it for changing oscillators and stuff like that.
That's another
really
classic.
Nice. I'm also using the Behringer 303 clone.
Oh, that's sick. I got one.
It's really nice. Oh, really? What color?
You know, you're gonna hate me, but
classic silver.
I got classic silver because I wanted the yellow one, but it was like I'd have to wait a month or two, and I was like, nah, I want this thing now. So I got the silver one. I was like, oh, it'd be cool to get the red one or the blue one, but I don't know. I just wanted the classic one.
For sure, I went for the blue,
nice.
Which I kind of wish. For making a lot of drum beats, I'm using a Roland MC303, the Groove Box.
Oh, nice.
You don't really like the sequencer on it.
Yeah, and it has so many. Especially if you like early '90s techno, it's got every sound in there.
Well, I mean, I tend to just like program using normal drum sounds and then run it through a million different guitar pedals. Like I use a lot of guitar pedals with my setup. Like I have a bunch of Akai head rush pedals. They're really nice delay looper pedals. I used to use them in my post-rock band because, polyrhythms and all that shit.
Yeah.
Record one thing, play another thing in a different time signature over the top. So I use those a lot for making loops. My newest thing is a Chaos Pad. I got a Chaos Pad KP3 Plus.
Cool.
That's a really nice addition to it. I'm using. So.
How's the beat slicer on that?
Oh, it's really good. I've heard the KP3 isn't so great, but it's flawless. I can record an 8-bar loop or an 8-beat loop rather, and then take beats 4 and 8 out of it, and it will stay in sync. As long as you use the clock of the KP3 to control octamed, it will stay in sync. If you try and sync it from octamed, it is shit. Like octamed, if you're using octamed and you're at 120 BPM, it's 119.8 BPM, but it will tell the Chaos Pad that it's 120. So yeah, it's terrible. So I have to use the Chaos Pad to control the clock. But as long as you do that, it's great. Like the beat slicing is amazing. I'm still learning. I've only had it weeks now, but I'm really, really enjoying it.
Sick. I had an MC303 and I loved it, but I couldn't get it to stay on time. I think mine was broken or something. I had a weird fluctuation. Oh, really? Yeah, and I was really bummed out about selling it because I fucking loved it. That you could kill someone with an MC303. That thing is a tank. You could throw it at a car and you would fuck up the car.
For sure. I mean, I haven't had a problem with timing. I did have a problem with getting it to ignore MIDI channels.
Yeah.
So before I had the Novation drum station, I was using it on 90s Rave Retrospective 7, I think. And but it would pick up every single MIDI channel. So what I had to do every time I loaded a song, a massive list of system exclusive messages to it to basically disable the MIDI channels.
Oh, wow.
And then it would only read on MIDI channel 10 or whatever. And then I could use it as a standalone drum machine, but that was a pain in the ass.
Yeah.
Every time you turn it on, you had to just spend like a few minutes each time squirting a bunch of code into it to say, ignore these channels.
Leon, thank you very much. I appreciate the talk. I appreciate your time. Very influential breakcore artist. People, go check them out. What are your links that people go check you out at?
If you go to goreshit.co.uk, it has links to all my stuff. I have like Bandcamp and SoundCloud and all that stuff. But yeah, if you go to goreshit.co.uk, it's got links to all of it. So it's a lot easier than reading out everything.
and a Patreon that you post exclusive material on.
I do, yeah. Basically, I set that up to be able to fund production of merchandise because I do most of it myself. For the first few years, I did it all myself. So I never had the money to print that many T-shirts or whatever. So I would raise the money beforehand, and then those people get the merchandise for supporting me. And people still do, which is crazy. And I really appreciate them because sometimes it's the difference between being able to pay a bill or not for bills. But if I have to, there is a nice backup and massively appreciate that.
Excellent. Well, thanks for your time, Leon. It was great. Take care.
No problem. You too.
Yeah, see you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.